Well, hello again, the Italian cat fans. Today we're going to read chapter 5 of Diagon Alley. It's a very good chapter and I hope you really like it. So without much further ado, let's get started. Harry woke early the next morning. Although he could tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes shut tight. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to a school for wizards. When I open my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard. There was suddenly a loud tapping noise. And there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door, Harry thought, his heart sinking. Awkward moment of silence. But he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. Tap, tap, tap. All right, mumbled Harry, I'm getting up. He sat up and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. The hall was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the collapsed sofa, and there was an owl wrapping its claws on the window, a newspaper held in its beak. Harry scrambled to his feet so happy he felt as though a large balloon was swelling inside him. He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. The owl then fluttered onto the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coat. Don't do that. Hagrid... The awkward moment of silence. Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on, savaging the coat. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, there's an owl. Pay him, Harry grunted into the sofa. What? He wants paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pockets. Hagrid's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets, bunches of key slug pellets, balls of string, peppermint humbugs, tea bags. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coins. Give him 5 nuts, said Hagrid sleepily. Nuts. The little bronze ones. Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins, and the owl held out his leg so Harry could put the money inside a small leather pouch tied to it. Then he flew off through the open window. Hagrid yawned loudly, sat up, and stretched. Best be off, Harry. Last Tuesday. Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff for school. Hagrid was turning over the wizard coins and looking at them. He had just thought that something that made him as though the happy balloon inside him had got a puncture. Hagrid? Said Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. I haven't got any money. You heard Uncle Vernon last night. He won't pay me to go and learn magic. Don't worry about that, said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head. Do you think your parents didn't leave you with anything? But if their house was destroyed, they didn't keep their gold in the house, boy. Nah, first stop for us, Gringotts, Wizard's Bank. Have a sausage, they're not bad cold. And I wouldn't say no to a bit of your birthday cake neither. Wizards have banks? Just one, Gringotts, run by goblins. Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins? Yeah, so you'd be mad to try and rob it, I'll tell you that. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Gringotts is the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep safe, except maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, I gotta visit Gringotts anyway, for Dumbledore, Hogwarts business. Hagrid drew himself up proudly. He usually gets me to do important stuff for him, fetching you, getting things from Gringotts. Now he can trust me. See? Got everything? Come on then. Harry followed Hagrid out onto the rock. The sky was quite clear and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. The boat Uncle Vernon had hired was still there, with a lot of water in the bottom after the storm. How did you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat. Flew, said Hagrid. Flew? Yeah, but we'll go back on this. Not supposed to use magic now I've got you. They settled down on the boat, Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine to see him flying. Seems a shame to row, though, said Hagrid, giving Harry another way of his sideways looks. If I speed things up a bit, would you not mention it at Hogwarts? Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out a pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off towards land. Why would you be mad to try and rob Gringotts? Harry asked. Spells, enchantments, said Harry, unfolding the newspaper as he spoke. Hagrid. There are still dragons guarding the high security vaults, and then you've got to find your way. Gringotts is hundreds of miles under London, see, deep inside the underground. You'd die of hunger trying to get out, even if you did manage to get your hands on some. Harry sat down, though and thought about all this while Hagrid read the newspaper, the Daily Prophet. Harry had learned from Uncle Vernon that people like to be left alone when they did this, but it was very difficult. He'd never had so many questions in his life. Ministry of Magic messing things up as usual, Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a Ministry of Magic? Harry asked before he could stop himself. Of course, said Hagrid. They wanted Dumbledore for minister, of course, but he'd never leave Hogwarts, so old Cornelius Fudge got the job. Bungler if there ever was one, so he pelts Dumbledore with owls every morning asking for advice. But what does a Ministry of Magic do? Well, their main job is to keep it from muggles that there's still witches and wizards up and down the country. Why? Why, blimey Harry, everyone's been wanting magic solutions to their problems. Now we're better left alone. At the moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbour wall. Hagrid folded up his newspapers. They clambered up the stone steps onto the street. Passersby stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town onto the station. Harry couldn't blame them. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as anyone else, he kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things like parking meters and saying loudly, "See that, Harry? Things these muggles dream up, hey?" "Hagrid," said Harry, panting a bit as he ran to keep up. "Did you say there are dragons at Gringotts?" "Well, so they say," said Hagrid. "Cricky, I'd like a dragon." "You'd like one?" "Wanted one since I ever was a kid. Here we go." They had reached the station. There was a train to London in 5 minutes' time. Hagrid, who didn't understand muggle money, as he called it, gave the bills to Harry so he could buy their tickets. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and started knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. "Still got your letter, Harry," as he counted the stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. "Good," said Hagrid. "There's a list of everything you need." Hagrid unfolded a second piece of paper he hadn't noticed the night before and read, "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First-year students will require 3 sets of plain black robes, black. Plain work robes, black. Number 2. 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear. Number 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. Number 4. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Please note that all pupils' clothes should carry name tags. Course books. All students should have a copy of each of the following: The Sardin Book of Spells, Grade 1, by Merida Goshawk. A History of Magic, by Bathilda Bagshot. Magic Theory, by Albert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, by Faidila Spore. Magical Draughts and Potions, by Arsenio Jigar. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection, by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter standard size 2, 1 set glass or crystal phials, 1 telescope, 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that the first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. "Can we buy all this in London?" Harry wondered aloud. "If you know where to go," said Hagrid. Harry had never been to London before. Although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going, he was obviously not used to getting in the ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and the trains were too slow. "I don't know how these muggles manage without magic," he said as he climbed down a broken-down escalator that led up to a bustling road lined with shops. The awkward moment of silence. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if you could see the magic wand. There was no ordinary street. It was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. But could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles underneath them? But were there really shops that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry have thought so, yet somehow even the awkward moment of silence. If Hagrid hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. People hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop to one side of the record shop and the awkward moment of silence. And the others as if they couldn't see the leaky cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Okay, back to the reading. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to an old gardener who was quite bald and looked like a toothless walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid, but they waved and smiled at him, and the gardener reached for the glass, saying, "The usual Hagrid? Can't Tom, I'm on Hogwarts business," said Harry, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder, that made Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the gardener, peering at Harry. Can it be?" The leaky cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old gardener. "Harry Potter, what an honor." He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed towards Harry, and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter, welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then he found the great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the leaky cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last." "So proud, Mr. Potter. I'm just so proud. Always wanted to shake your hand. I'm all of a flutter. Delighted, Mr. Potter. Can't tell you. Diggle's the name. Daddle is Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry as Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "He remembers!" cries Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone. "Did you hear that? He remembers me!" Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward very nervously. One of his eyes were twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." "Potter," stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. "Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you." "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?" "The defense against the dark arts," muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. "Not that you need it, eh, Potter?" He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to pick up a new book on vampires myself." He looked terrified at the very thought. But the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It was almost 10 minutes he had to get away from them. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble. "Must get on, lots to buy. Come on, Harry." Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar out a small walled courtyard. There was nothing but a trash can and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. "Told you, didn't I? Told you you were famous." Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you. Mind you, he's usually trembling. Is he always that nervous?" "Oh yeah, poor bloke, brilliant mind. He was fine when he was studying out of books, and then he took a year off to get some hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and it was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of students, scared of his own subject. Oh, now, where's my umbrella? Vampires? Hags?" Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting the bricks in the wall above the trash can. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. "Right, stand back, Harry." He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered and wriggled, and in the middle a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later they were facing an archway large enough for Hagrid, and large enough even for Hagrid, an archway onto a cobbled street, and twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into a solid wall. The sun shone brightly on the stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, said a sign over them. "Yeah, you'll be needing one. But we've got to get your money first," said Hagrid. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce. They're mad." A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying, "Aelops Al Imperium, Tony Screech Barn, brown and snowy." Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with a broomstick in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say, "the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." These were the shops there were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels and bat spleens and eel's eyes, tottering spellbooks, squirrels and walls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. "Gringotts," said Harry. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet gold, was... "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Harry quietly as they walked up the stone-white steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He was swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed to them as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. Enter, strangers, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dreadly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors the treasure that was never yours, see if you have been warned before of finding more treasure there. Finding more than treasure there." "Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it," said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed to them through the silver doors as they were inside a vast marble hall. The awkward moment of silence. About 100 more goblins were sitting on the high stools behind the long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," said Harry to a free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." You have his key, sir." "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid. He started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits all over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on the right weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny little key. The goblin looked at it closer. "That seems to be in order. And also I've got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about you-know-what in Vault you-know-which." The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I will have someone take you down to both vaults." Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid has crammed all the dog biscuits back inside of his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook to one of the doors leading off to the hall. What's the you-know-what in Vault you-know-which?" Harry asked. Can't tell you that, said Hagrid mysteriously. Very secret Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. More than my job's worth to tell you that. Griphook held the door open for them. Hagrid, who was expecting more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in. Hagrid, with some difficulty, and were off. At first, they had hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Hagrid tried to remember left, right, left, middle, fork, right on the way, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept off a passage and twisted around to see if there was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake with huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and the floor. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite? A stalagmite got an eminence, said Hagrid. And don't ask me questions now. I think I'm going to be sick. He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door on the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's. It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep them? And all the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into the bag. The gold ones are gallons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon and 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. That should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll be in the awkward moment of silence. We'll keep the rest of safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now, please, and can we go a bit more slowly? One speed only, said Griphook. They were going even deeper and now in gathering speed. The air became colder as they hurtled down tight corners. They were rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leaned over to try to see what was down at the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scuff of the neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'll be stuck through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside the top security vault, Harry was sure. And he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first, he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped it up with brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but he knew better than to ask. Come on, back into the infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep me mouth shut, said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside of Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first when he had a bag full of money. He didn't know how much galleons were to a pound, and that he was holding more money than he'd ever had in his whole life, more than Dudley ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding towards Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off to a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts cards. He still did look a bit sick, so Hagrid entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed in all mauve. "Hogwarts, dear?" she asked, when Harry started to speak. "Got the lot here, another young man being fitted up just now, in fact." In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on the stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. "Hello," said the boy. "Hogwarts too?" "Yes," said Harry. "My father's next door buying me books, and mother's up the street looking at wands," said the boy. He had a bored, drawling voice. "Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I'll think I'll bully father into getting me one and smuggle it in somehow." Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. "Have you got your own broom?" the boy went on. "No," said Harry. "Play Quidditch at all?" "No," Harry said again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. "I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house. And if I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet?" "No," said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. "Well, no one really knows until they get there, but I know I'll be in Slytherin. All our family had been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'll leave, wouldn't you?" Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. "I say, look at that man," said the boy, suddenly nodding towards the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at two large ice creams to show he couldn't come in. "That's Hagrid," said Harry, pleased to know something the boy didn't. "He works at Hogwarts." "Oh," said the boy, "I've heard of him. He's a sort of servant, isn't he?" "He's the gamekeeper," said Harry. If he was liking the boy less and less every second. "Yes, exactly. I heard he's sort of savage. He lives in a hut in the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk, tries to do magic, and ends up setting fire to his bed." "I think he's brilliant," said Harry coldly. "Do you?" said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents?" "They're dead," said Harry shortly. He didn't feel much like going on with the boy. "Oh, sorry," said the other, not sounding sorry at all. "But they were our kind, weren't they?" "They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same, and they've never been brought up to our ways. Some of them might have never heard of Hogwarts until they get there. Imagine. I think they should keep it old in the wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway?" But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear." And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. "Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate ice cream Hagrid had bought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. "What's up?" said Hagrid. "Nothing," Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when they found a bottle of ink that changed colour when you wrote. When they had left the shop, he said, "Hagrid, what's Quidditch?" "Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know not knowing about Quidditch." "Don't make me feel worse," said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy in Madame Malkin's, and he said that people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. "You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd know who you were, he'd be grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw what everyone in the leaky cauldron was like when they saw you. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best I ever saw was the ones in a long time of Muggles. Look at your mum. Look what she'd had for a sister. So what is Quidditch? It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like soccer in Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch, played up on the air, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules." What are Slytherin and Hufflepuff?" "Schoolhouses. There are 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff," said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin," said Hagrid darkly. "There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who was at Hogwarts years and years ago," said Hagrid. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Blots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones bound to the leather, books the size of postage stamps and covers of silk, books full of peculiar symbols and and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who had never read anything in his life, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid was almost had to drag Harry from the curses and counter curses, bewitch your friends, and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges: hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more, by Professor Vingus and Virgin. I was trying out how to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world, except in very special circumstances. Awkward moment of silence, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you can get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It said it says pewter on your list, but they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. Then they visited that apothecary with a fascinating enough to make up its horrible smell, a mixture of bad eggs and rotted cabbages. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor, jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright power lions on the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry examined the silver unicorn horns. At 1 galleons each, a minuscule, glittery black beetleized 5 nuts a scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. And just yet one left. Oh yeah, and still haven't got you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to tell you what I've got. You're an animal, not Toad. Toads went out of fashion years ago. Yuck, be laughed at. And I don't like cats. They make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls. They're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything. 20 minutes later, they left Aelop's owl emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering jewel-bright eyes. Harry had now carried a large cage that had a beautiful snowy owl fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from the Dursleys. The awkward moment of silence. Just Ollivanders left now. Only place for wands. Ollivanders, and you've got to have the best wand, a magic wand. That's what Harry had been really looking forward to. The last shop was narrow and shabby. Peeling gold letters over the door read Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. A single wand lay on the faded purple cushion in the dusty window. A tinkling bell rang somewhere in the depths of the shop as they stepped inside. It was a tiny place, empty except for a single spindly chair that Hagrid sat on to wait. Harry felt strangely as though he had entered a very strict library. He swallowed a lot of new questions that had just occurred to him and looked inside the thousands of narrow boxes piled neatly into the ceiling. For some reason, the back of his neck prickled. The very dust and silence in here seemed to tingle with some secret magic. Good afternoon, said a soft voice. Harry jumped. Hagrid must have jumped too, because there was a loud crunching noise, and he quickly got off the spindly chair. An old man was standing before them, his eyes wide, pale, shining like moons in the gloom of the shop. Hello, said Harry awkwardly. Ah, yes, said the man. Yes, I thought I'd be seeing you soon, Harry Potter. It wasn't a question. You have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand. 10 1/4 inches long, so she made of willow. Nice wand for charm work. Mr. Ollivander moved closer to Harry. Harry wished he would blink. Those silvery eyes were a bit creepy. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand, 11 inches, pliable, a little more power and excellent for transfiguration. Well, I'd say your father favored it. It's really the one that chooses the wizard, of course. Mr. Ollivander had come so close that he and Harry were almost nose to nose. Harry could see himself reflected in those misty eyes, and that's where Mr. Ollivander touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead with a long white finger. I'm sorry to say I saw the wand that did it, he said softly. 13 1/2 inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Well, if I'd known where that wand was going out in the world to do. He shook his head, and then, to Harry's relief, spotted Hagrid. Rubus Hagrid, how nice to see you again. Oak 16 inches, rather bendy, wasn't it? It was, sir, yes, said Hagrid. Good wand, that one, but I suppose they snapped it in half when you got expelled, said Mr. Ollivander, suddenly stern. Yes, they did, said Hagrid, shuffling his feet. I've still got the pieces, though, he added brightly. But why don't you use them? Said Mr. Ollivander sharply. Oh, no, sir, said Hagrid quickly. Harry noticed he gripped his hands on the pink umbrella very tightly as he spoke. Said Mr. Ollivander, giving Hagrid a pierced look. Well, now, Mr. Potter, let me see. He pulled out a long tape measure and the silver markings out of his pocket. Which was your wand arm? Well, I'm right-handed, said Harry. Hold out your arm. That's it. He measured Harry from shoulder to finger, then wrist to elbow, shoulder to floor, knee to armpit, and round his head. As he measured, he said, Every Ollivander wand has a core of powerful magic substance, Mr. Potter. We use unicorn hairs, phoenix tail feathers, and heartstrings of dragons. No two Ollivander wands are the same, not as two unicorns, dragons, or phoenixes are quite the same. And of course, you will never get such good results with another wizard's wand. Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing it on its own. Mr. Ollivander was flirting around the shelves, taking down boxes. That'll do, he said as the tape measure crumpled into a heap on the floor. Right then, Mr. Potter, try this one. Beechwood and dragon heartstring, 9 inches. Nice and flexible. Just take it and give it a wave. Harry took the wave and, feeling foolish, waved it around a bit. But Mr. Ollivander snatched it out of his hand almost at once. Maple and phoenix feathers, 7 inches. Quite whippy. Try. Harry tried, but he hardly raised the wand when it, too, was snatched back by Mr. Ollivander. No. Here, ebony and unicorn hair, 8.5 inches, springy. Go on, try it out. Harry tried and tried. He had no idea what Mr. Ollivander was waiting for. The pile of tried wands were mounting higher and higher on the spindly chair, but the more wands Mr. Ollivander pulled from the shelves, the happier he seemed to become. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder now, yes, why not? Usual combination. Holy and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand. He felt a sudden warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand above his head, brought it swishing down through the dusty air, and a stream of red and gold sparks shoot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. Hagrid whooped and clapped, and Mr. Ollivander cried, "Oh, bravo! Yes, indeed! Oh, very good! Well! How curious! How very curious!" He put Harry's wand back into its box and wrapped it in brown paper, still muttering, "Curious! Sorry," said Harry, "but what's curious?" Mr. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter, every single wand. So it so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar." Harry swallowed. "Yes, 13.5 inches. Curious indeed how things happen. The wand chooses the wizard, remember. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great." Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much. He paid 7 gold galleons for his wand, and Mr. Ollivander bowed to them from his shop. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Harry and Hagrid made their way back down to Diagon Alley, back through the wall, back through the leaky cauldron, now empty. Harry didn't speak at all as they walked down the road. He didn't notice how much people were gawking at them in the underground, laden as they were in their funny-shaped packages, with a snowy owl asleep in his cage on Harry's lap. Up another escalator, out into Paddington Station, Harry realized there was Hagrid when tapped him on the shoulder. "Got time for a bite before your train leaves," he said. He bought Harry a hamburger and they sat down on the plastic seats to eat them. Harry kept looking around. Everything looked so strange somehow. "You all right, Harry? Very quiet," said Hagrid. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He had just had the best birthday of his life, and yet he chewed his hamburger trying to find the words. "Everyone thinks I'm special," he said at last. "All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things from me? I'm famous and I can't even remember what I'm famous for." I don't know what happened to the night my parents died. Hagrid leaned across the table. Behind the wild beard and eyebrows, he wore a very kind smile. Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself. I know it's hard. You've been singled out and it's always hard, but you've had a great time at Hogwarts. I did, still do. Smarter, of fact. Hagrid helped Harry onto the train that would take him back to the Dursleys, then handed him the envelope. Your ticket for Hogwarts, he said. 1st of September, King's Cross. It's all on your ticket. Any problems with the Dursleys, send me a letter with your owl. She'll know where to find me. See you soon, Harry. The train pulled out of the station. Harry wanted to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. He rose in his seat and pressed his nose against the window, but he blinked and Hagrid was gone. Okay, well, Italian Cat fan, guys, we just read chapter 5. I know it has been a very long chapter, nearly 40 minutes. Well, 40 minutes actually, but chapter 6 is the journey from platform 9 3/4. That is when he arrives to Hogwarts. Okay, I'm not going to spoil it for you. So, until next time, reading chapter 6. Bye, Italian Cat fans.